Thank you so much for watching my show. William Wallace for America. With me today in this interview is yet another person who's out there helping veterans. And I say it very softly and easily like that because as you begin to hear the things that she talks about with her organization, you're going to become more and more intrigued on yet another way that we can help our veterans. And not only our veterans, but also those who are considering military service, because they need to know that when they go into the military and they get out, that they're going to have organizations that will help them, because they often hear, quite honestly, the nightmare stories of what veterans go through after military service. And this is something that I think people need to know more and more about. And with me today to discuss her organization is Judy Isaacson Elias. Did I say that right, Judy?
You said it right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. The name of your organization?
Heroes to Heroes.
I love it.
And, in so many ways, heroes have the power to help other heroes, and people have the power to help other people. And that's what we use, a combination of people to people and God to people. And what we found, we work with something a little bit that isn't discussed that much. It's called moral injury. And just to give you a brief definition, the best way to understand it, it's the shame and guilt brought home from war. And most people feel, oh, our vets, they're soldiers. They go to war. We almost treat them like automatons. Go to war, just go, do whatever you have to do. War is about kill or be killed. There's nothing pretty about it. There's nothing, when a soldier's on the battlefield, they're not thinking politics. They're thinking, how do I save my life and how do I save my buddy's life? And that's the simplest way to look at it. So we send them out there, we prepare them intellectually, we prepare them physically, maybe a little bit emotionally, but we don't prepare them spiritually. And the average American has about an 8-year-old's understanding of their faith. They know the 10 Commandments, what's good, what's not good, but they don't know that gray area. What happens when you have to, quote unquote, transgress those commandments? Maybe for your job, like in the military, you have to do. And one of the things that we as people can help us understand those 10 Commandments, and people of faith, is understanding where they came from. Now, of course, they came from God, but using the real definition, we have translated something so horribly that we're causing pain. For lo tirzach means thou shalt not murder. The original Hebrew, the lo tirzach, thou shalt not murder. We've translated it to thou shalt not kill. Now, even in American jurisprudence, American law, which comes from the Bible, there's a difference between murdering and killing. There's a difference that's between manslaughter and murder. We don't explain that when a soldier is going to war, what does God want from us? Number one, God wants us to be alive for him.
Right.
He created us. So when you're being sent to war, you're being put in a situation like that, your job is to stay alive. And in that situation, it's absolutely okay to do that job.
And what's interesting as you say this, the other side feels like they're doing the same thing. We might think of an American soldier right now who was sent to, maybe they were sent to World War II, Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, anywhere in the Middle East. And we send them there and we think we're the good guys, they're the bad guys. And that's what we believe. And I'm not trying to, rearrange that. I'm just thinking in general, for simplicity terms. And so the other side, though, they're thinking that they're being invaded, that they're doing the right thing by, protecting themselves. So, on the battlefield, who is really the right one in God's eyes? Who's really protected themselves, Or does God not discriminate? Does he say, you know what? You two were sent here by your Caesar, basically, your government, pay Caesar first. God always, when Jesus always said, you pay what goes to Caesar, and what goes to God. But that using that kind of explanation, that analogy rather, you know, a soldier doesn't think about that when they're in a war, in a battle zone. So when they come home, many feel that how'd you put it, that justifiable guilt, or that how'd you put it earlier,
Yeah,
that
moral injury.
moral injury. How
Right. And I
how do
also
you
think we're also, now keep in mind, we are not fighting people who think the way we do necessarily.
right
We're not fighting Europe. We're not, in many ways, in many places we go, we're fighting a death cult. People who worship death, who feel that their death, if they were to die in battle, it's what their God wants. Okay. So it's two totally different things we're looking at. When we're fighting a godless people or people who don't believe in the Bible, it's a different, it's a different enemy. And I think as Westerners, it's very hard for us to look at that. And many of the wars going on right now are just the wars against death cults. And we are right. Okay. And I have to throw that out there. So,
oh yeah
because
I believe,
I believe that we are right. We are fighting for the Bible. The war right now is about the Bible. Our election is about the Bible. So one of the things we can do now is really start talking about that, bringing that out there. What do we want our lives to look like? One of the things, the most important thing we work with the vets is our values. What are your values? How do you identify your values? As parents, are we teaching children values? Or is the only value get into a top college, get an A? The most important values: God, family, faith, connection, being really good people, following our parents, tradition, history. All of that were the values I know I was brought up with, my kids were brought up with. But when I ask the average person, when I'm sitting down meeting someone for a cup of coffee for networking, and I go, well, what do you value? And it takes them a while to think about it.
so how did you I want to talk about your organization specifically. I love that you're sharing with me and the values, and I agree with not only your values, and I agree with what you're saying exactly right now, and I also agree that right now in the battlefield we're right. We are fighting for a more justifiable cause for peace around the world, instead of the other side, which just believes that sending people to their definition of hell is what's going to get them to heaven and their people to heaven, or their heaven rather. But I want to talk about more about what gave you the idea to start Heroes to Heroes, and what exactly do you do?
Okay, so my father was a World War II vet, Second Day Normandy, Battle of the Bulge, liberated a concentration camp, and in many ways never came home. He saw his time in World War II, and he was in the thick of it, as probably the best time of his life. And he had a tough time finding himself. And I watched him throughout the years, and I always felt like I was missing half my dad. What was going on with him? And after he passed, I learned a lot more. I learned that, he felt most at home when he was with other veterans. And he was very involved in veterans organizations and helping disabled vets. And I kind of tucked that away. That was in 2001. 2009, I visited our soldiers at Walter Reed Army Medical Center when it was in DC. And what I saw as an American, as a mom, horrified me. I saw a lot of our soldiers that had come home and they just wanted to go back. They didn't really know what their next step was. I just couldn't understand it. I said I had to do something. I started volunteering at organizations. There are so many great organizations out there. At the same time, I saw a lot of partying and alcohol, and I'm going, this can't be good for wounded vets. Like, we need to do something more. Then I learned about the suicide rate, 22 a day, and I said, this is a national health crisis. This has to end. This is what I've got to do. I started studying suicide, digging deep into just research. And when you dig down deep, there are a couple of themes that just kept popping up: belonging and faith. And I said, that's what I have to look at. When I was 16 years old, I was going through a really rough time. I was going down a bad path, self-destruction. My parents sent me on a pilgrimage to Israel. When I put my hand on the Western Wall, my world changed. And I said, wow, I'm not alone. And I realized God was with me. Well, 2009, I said to myself, what if I started focusing on the faith aspect and the belonging aspect of life? And what if I took veterans on that spiritual journey to Israel, to the Holy Land? Doesn't matter what faith they are. You know, Christians and Jews, that's where it all began for us. What if I took them on that physical journey? Would it help them on their spiritual journey and help them heal?
So your organization, you hear about the high suicide rates. So your way of reaching out to these veterans is say, hey, we're here, we're helping. Do you all connect, heroes, meaning the ones that might be in trouble, to other heroes that are on, let's just say, better foundation or better, I don't want to say stable ground,
Well,
but I want to say they're in a better place and they are the hero that's able to help another hero. That's kind of what I would read into it there. And is that what you do, your organization does, is connect
right.
them?
Well, it's a combination. We work with teams of five veterans, and they have a coach who is an alumnus of the program. So that coach has been through what they've been through, but they've gone through the 12-month. We have a 12-month curriculum, and it starts why I talked about values. It's based on values, and we help them understand their values. They meet twice a month. They have written work. They have assignments. They work very hard. They have one-on-one meetings with their coach. And in the 5th month of the program, they travel to Israel. They travel to the Holy Land. And most of them are Christians, about 98% are Christian faith. They get baptized in the Jordan River. They walk the Stations of the Cross. They walk wherever Jesus walked. It's about that reconnection. And during that time, they're learning about the Bible. They're learning about the context of the Bible. We use a lot of the Hebrew Bible and the Christian Bible, but they start to learn exactly what their faith means. What was said? Why was it said? What was the age that it was said? What was going on? And it starts to come alive for them. And a big challenge that they have is finding atonement, finding forgiveness. And our focus is finding that forgiveness. We have a lot of assignments, and one of the assignments is done while they're in Jerusalem. And it's after they've gotten baptized, and they're given this, and they're told, write a letter to God. Now, if you haven't done it, I suggest you do it, and probably everyone should do it. Just write that letter. Dear God, what's going on in my mind? Where am I? What are my concerns? What are my positives? What are my negatives? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Really focused on what is that relationship about? What is God telling me? What do I need to tell God? And from there, from those questions, you start getting answers. You get clarity. What do I need to work on? How do I work on my relationship with God? How do I move it forward? What are the things that are stopping me from that relationship? So, and vets are in such a dark place, many of them, and they live. If you look behind me with the yellow, there's a big yellow painting
The red heart, yeah.
with a red heart. That was done by an Israeli soldier he was an Air Force pilot who was captured by the Syrians. And this was back in, I believe, 73, maybe 67. And he was in their prison, their dungeon for 6 months. And he found that painting helps him depict those scenes and work. He said the whole time he was in captivity, he thought about his wife, and in the heart are pictures of he and his wife.
So it's amazing that he made it out of that Syrian prison.
Yes, Henry Kissinger actually got him out of that prison. And but he reconnected with life, he reconnected with faith, and it helped him just get through a lot of the negative stuff he was feeling. He was feeling alone, he was feeling abandoned.
So how do people qualify to be a part of your organization to help veterans? How do you all find them? How do they find you? How are there qualifications?
Yes.
We talked about suicides, or what, 17 to 22 people die every day, which is an astounding number.
It's a crisis.
That's almost at the rate of fentanyl, which probably some of them are a result of fentanyl. Because I guess many face drug addictions. How do you all find them? How do they find you? Are there requirements?
Yes. Okay. So the best way to find us is go to our website, heroes2heroes.org. That's HeroesToHeroes.org. And the information is on the site. There's also an application. We work with combat veterans of any conflict. I mean, we even had, when we started 11 years ago, we had someone from the war in Korea, amazingly enough.
Wow.
But we've had, Vietnam vets, Desert Storm. As long as you were deployed to a war theater, you qualify. And that you have not yet traveled to Israel, because this is a first time. This is part of our, we have those limits, and
Right.
there are reasons for it, because we've had people who have, and they kind of ruin it for the others. I'll put it like straight out there. Okay. But they need to commit to working with their team for a minimum of 12 months. Now, what happens with these teams, they become a family, and they start working together. And so I have coaches whose teams completed the program 6 months ago, but they still meet once a month just to all be together. They still have their team chat, but they've got to commit to 2 meetings a month to doing written work.
Go ahead.
No, it's a big commitment. We do have a fee. We have a $500 fee, because we want people to commit. And we know the difference between that commitment and not having that commitment is huge.
So they pay you, or do y'all have maybe donors that pay for them, or sponsors that pay for them?
They can, our cost is over $10,000 a veteran. So $9,500 of the cost is paid by donors. What we find is we want the veterans to commit to it, because they've got to put in the work. And when they don't make that financial commitment, 2 months into it, they don't want to do the assignment. And this makes all the difference in the world. We work with the veterans who cannot, have trouble with the $500. We do have scholarships, but we're very, very strict on that. We want that commitment. it is so important for their own head. And if all of us, when we get something for free, we're like, okay, yeah, I'll go. I'm not going to show up. I'm tired. I don't want to go to that event. I don't want to go to that meeting.
Right.
We need that commitment. And the other vets who they're working with on their team, they need them to have that commitment. So we do help everyone who needs it. But we do want them to have skin in this game. It's so important. Our major donor is Jewish National Fund. They have been amazing to us for the past, 8 years. And we visit many of their sites in Israel. They actually they do a lot of heritage sites in Israel. So they have been very supportive of us.
It's interesting how much you tie Israel and that visit to Israel into your organization. But I do want to go back to how many people do you think you feel like you've prevented from committing suicide
Wow.
in your organization, to any of the statistics that you can point to and how people can help?
Okay, we have over 450 American veterans have gone through our program. And I always hesitate to say this, but I believe that God wants me to tell you that none have committed suicide to
Wow,
date.
that's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome.
There's a real commitment here, and they commit to each other. And there is one point where they get together and they promise each other that their lives will not end that way. So there's a real commitment. There's a commitment to their fellow vets and to God. This is
It's
not
almost
how
like
this is
your
going to end.
organization helps them create a commitment in their civilian life that they had in their military life. In your military life, you're committing to your fellow troop, your fellow soldiers, the people in your troop and your that you're with in service. You're committing to them that you got each other's back. You're going to save each other's life and you're not going to let each other down. And now you in your organization, Heroes to Heroes, it's kind of like you recreated that bond and that commitment in in their civilian life.
Yes. And, it's about honor and it's about faith. And so people can help us in so many ways. We are doing a country concert here in Boca Raton, Florida in January with a country artist. That should be a lot of fun at the end of January. But, it's people can sponsor a vet for the program.
Is it
can
the
use
$500 or the $9,500?
It's to sponsor a vet, it's $7,500.
Okay.
And so, but every gift is important, and it's just shows our vets that you care. We are a very lean organization, and our goal, we have a long waiting list. So our goal is to get to everyone on the list and make sure we have the resources to do it. We train our coaches. We are looking for people to help us who have experience training teachers.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so there are so many things that can be done, so many things that we can use help with, everything from website to social media to you name it. But we definitely can use your help, and I just appreciate everything and everyone who reaches out. And again, our website is heroes2heroes.org, HEROESTOHEROES.org. We also have our 12-month curriculum that is available to schools, to churches, to community centers, that I'm happy to share with people. It really focuses on building people's self-esteem through connecting with values and living a life of values and living a life of purpose.
I tell you what, Judy, that you are absolutely amazing, and I can't thank you enough for being on doing my show with me today, and I really appreciate you. We got about another minute. Any final words? I know you've had some great final words here, but is there anything else that we're forgetting but to help some veterans?
Just with all the noise in this world, please remember our veterans. please, please, because I know they get mixed up, they get pushed aside. We have soldiers that are out there fighting now, and pray for them, love them, just take care of them, take care of your country, and thank you all for listening.
Judy, thank you so much. Hang on one second. I'll get right back to you. In the meantime, I want to tell my listeners, please, if you know any veterans that would fit into the help that this organization, Heroes to Heroes, can benefit from, they can benefit from, please go to their website, heroes2heroes.org, reach out to them, but also pass this interview on to another veteran. Maybe they don't need help, but maybe they know another veteran that needs help. Please, I'd be honored and grateful if you did. I'm sure Heroes to Heroes would too. Judy, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
And everybody else, please tune in for the next interview coming up next.